Section 4-5, Quadratic Equations. Today we are going to be talking about zeros of a function, and we're specifically talking about quadratic functions. This is going to be where the graph of the function intersects with the x-axis. So since we're talking about quadratic equations or quadratic functions, it's where your parabola is going to intersect with the x-axis. To find where our graph intersects with the x-axis, we are going to be using the zero product property. The zero product property says if a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0. To solve our quadratic equations, we are going to be factoring. So our first example is x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So first thing you want to check is make sure that your equation is equal to 0, otherwise we can't use the zero product property. So now you also want to check is a 1, and it is, so that makes this an easy factoring problem. So I'm just looking for numbers that multiply to negative 8 that add to negative 2. So I know that 4 times 2 is 8. Now I just need to decide which one's positive and negative. So since 2 is negative, so it's negative 4 times positive 2. So negative 4 plus 2 gives me negative 2, and negative 4 times 2 gives me negative 8. And then all what you do is you bring down the equals 0. So then the zero product property said a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. So this is like a, this is like b. So we are going to set them equal to 0 so that we can solve for x. So, x minus 4 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So, to solve for x, I need to add 4 to both sides. So, x equals positive 4. To solve for x, I need to subtract 2, or x equals negative 2. This is where your parabola is going to intersect your x-axis if you were to draw this as a graph. So I want you to press pause, and I want you to solve 2x squared minus 7x equals 15. And I want you to use your zero product property. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a hint. Since this doesn't equal 0 right now, we can't use our zero product property. So move it to the other side, and again, we're factoring. We're solving this by factoring. So to move positive 15 to the other side, we would subtract it. So that gives me 2x squared minus 7x minus 15 equals 0. Since a is 2, this is where we're going to have to multiply a times c. So 2 times negative 15 gives me negative 30. But we're looking for it to add to negative 7. So I'm going to use the factors of 10 and 3, but it needs to be a negative 7, so 10 needs to be negative. So negative 10 times 3 does give me negative 30 like I want. Negative 10 plus 3 gives me a negative 7 just like I want. So remember, bring down the 2x squared. And then either write the negative 10x or the positive 3x next. So since 10 is even, I'm going to write that one next. And then I'm going to write plus 3x, and then I bring down my minus 15, and I set it equal to 0. So now draw your line halfway in between. So look at the left-hand side. What does 2x squared and negative 10x have in common? 2 and an x, so that leaves me with x minus 5. Remember, bring down whatever sign is here, so that plus sign. What does 3x and negative 15 have in common? 3. That also leaves me with x minus 5. Remember, if those two parentheses aren't the same thing, that does mean you've done it wrong. So factor out an x minus 5, and that leaves you with 2x plus 3 equals 0. And now I can use my zero product property. So x minus 5 equals 0, 2x plus 3 equals 0. So to move negative 5 to the other side, I add it, so I get x equals 5. To move the 3 to the other side, I subtract it, and to get rid of the 2, I divide by it, so I get x equals negative 3/2. Our last example is 10b squared equals 2b. And again, we're using our zero product property, so I must make it equal to 0 so that I can use my zero product property. So I'm going to move my 2b to the other side. So to move it, I'm going to subtract it. And the reason why I didn't move my 10b squared to the other side is you always want the number that's in front of your squared term to be positive. So I wanted to keep it on the left-hand side. So that gives me 10b squared minus 2b equals 0. And I can't factor it normally because I'm missing my third term. I can't do my difference of two squares because I can't take the square root of 10 and I can't take the square root of 2. So what does 10b squared and 2b have in common? So they have 2b in common. So 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. If I have two b's and I take one away, that leaves me with a b. Negative 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1. And then b, if I had a b and I took a b away, it's just no more b's. So now use your zero product property, set the 2b equal to 0, set the 5b minus 1 equal to 0. So to get rid of that 2 that's out in front, I would divide, and 0 divided by 2 gives me that b equals 0. To move the negative 1 to the other side, I add it. So that gives me 5b equals positive 1. To get rid of your 5, you divide it. And so b equals 1/5.